rock and roll radio.
So hello, we are Radio On, and in case you listened to the first part of the Lustgarten, this is the second part. We are here in the Lustgarten, and the Lustgarten is in the middle of Berlin, where it all started for the city itself. I'm here with Adrian Shephard, who is recording this all and will edit the show. Jason Honea is walking next to me, and I'm Rinus Van Alebeek, and I'm do the introduction and mainly will keep my mouth shut because Jason knows everything. But maybe there's one thing that he doesn't know, because at the end of the Lustgarten #1 show, you heard that I got mixed up with the cardinal points. The north, the south, the west, because everything here is confusing. You've got a pink building which is probably west.
Das alte Zeughaus.
Genau. But opposite west is east, and that's the Berliner Dome. But the Berliner Dome, behind it, is Prenzlauer Berg, which is the north.
I thought it was Mitte.
No. So this building, which is in the east, is in fact in the north. So that makes that one north, and it's more like I am confused. And so I thought of the solution. And you don't have to orientate on the buildings, but on the open corners, okay? So, left of the palace is the east. And then the sun goes over the palace to the south, to the right of it. And then it goes over the Zeughaus and it jumps to the west. And it goes over the Altes Museum, and we are in the north, which is there. All this has a Gnostic meaning.
All right, let's go.
Because the palace is where the sun shines. The sun is over there.
Society.
Okay, and the sun shines on culture.
Art and culture.
What is growing from society?
When's Christ come in?
He might never come. But that's the one thing that got me confused. Is the church the right hand of the ruler, or are they the left hand? I would say they are the right hand.
At the right hand of the Father, at least in Catholic prayers, you always refer to the right hand of the Father.
Okay, then you are
right.
Yeah. So that's why they are there, and the left hand is the guys that you send to the war.
The military.
Yeah. So the sun rises, and the queen looks out of her window, and she sees the first beams of the sun in that corner. So what was there?
That would be the northwest.
No, of this little field.
The Dutch garden.
There you are.
Why do I know about the Dutch garden?
Because that's where the first beams of the sunshine
well,
were
hold on.
over there.
No, because Frederick I, der erste König in Preußen, Rinus, help me out here, his grandmother was Dutch, right?
His mum.
His mother was Dutch.
His mother was Dutch, and his mother was the granddaughter of William of Orange, who is the father of the fatherland.
Lord Pants.
He was the guy who made the Netherlands. He was the leader of the revolution.
Okay, we're talking about Frederick I, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys.
This Frederick I is also a very clever guy, because he was the son of this mother.
He was the party prince.
But he was also the son, and he was clever also. He was the son of this mother. So from that lineage, someone died. Someone of the oranges died without having sons. So then a big dispute started from who will be the next Prince of Orange. And this Frederick said, "Well, I am." And that's how he also got.
Are you talking about Frederick III?
Who became Frederick I.
The first, right. So, you guys, one of the things I find totally fascinating about Frederick III is that he hosted this big, huge, grand party in Berlin in which he invited all of the royal houses of Europe, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, the French, the Flemish, the Belgians.
Swedish, the Polish,
he invited everybody.
Russians.
And they all landed in Berlin, and then he packed them off in a series of coaches, apparently as much as 1,000. And they went to Königsberg. And then I heard that in Königsberg they had a party that went on for 2 or 3 months. At the very end, which everybody was lying around on the ground completely loaded, and Frederick III, he sees that crown sitting right next to him. I'm not sure if this is absolutely true. And he basically crowns himself before Napoleon Bonaparte ever did this. He goes, hey, you guys, look, I am the king of the Germans. And he basically crowned himself, and everyone went just... I'm not sure if that's absolutely true.
It's absolutely true from now on. Come on.
But anyway, so you guys, during his process of trying to turn Berlin, which up until his coronation looked like a cow town, I mean, pretty much the Unter den Linden was a big, huge, muddy strip. Malaria, typhoid, this, that, and the other thing. He then begins paving it, and one of the first buildings he ever bought, or he ever had made, was this Alte Zeughaus. And there was this inscription on this, and I'll read it to you in English. In the south, the Zeughaus opens into the boulevard Unter den Linden with an elaborate decorated main entrance. A gilded medallion shows the Prussian king Frederick I. The inscription, to pay tribute to the deeds of arms, to terrify his enemies, to protect his friends and allies, Frederick I, the exalted father of the Fatherland, sublime and undefeated King of Prussia, had this arsenal built from the ground up in 1706 for the storage of all weapons of war, as well as wartime spoils and trophies.
What I find so great about it is that they made the statues of suffering or cut off heads of the enemy on the battlefield. They're everywhere. They're all in agony. So you walk into that thing and all you're looking at in the courtyard is all those people from I just lost my head. And that's how I look, with my mouth open and with my eyes full of fear. Yeah, I can't wait until it opens.
Yeah, it's going to be open, I think, in less than half of a year.
Yeah.
It's going to reopen. It's got that staircase inside. Hey, you guys, my favorite story about the palace. So, the first time we ever really hear about the Hohenzollerns ever maintaining any kind of presence here in Berlin was over on the far southeast side of the palace, where the Hohenzollerns built this big, huge kind of burg, like a castle, because they wanted to impress the Berliners with their royal, or they weren't royals yet, but with their power presence. Like, you guys can be as rebellious as you want, but if you want to fuck with us, man, we're going to fuck with you real bad. All right, so that's why they had this over here, okay? And then, with people like Frederick III, who became Frederick I, they began focusing heavily on the palace, okay? Friedrich Wilhelm I, the Soldatenkönig, he was in here, but his son, Frederick II, didn't like this thing at all. Okay, for starters, it was way too freezing. Did I already say this in the initial? Okay.
No.
So it was freezing in the wintertime. I mean, just look at this thing. It's a big, huge cave, man-made cave, okay? And because the Prussians were always frugal, trying to illuminate this thing at night with candles was a huge waste of money. And what I find most precious and totally amazing is, you guys, if you ever see conservative depictions of Frederick II, the later Frederick the Great, standing around with like his sash and his cane and his hat turned sideways, he's depicted with like 3 dogs standing around him. But you know what, boys? That guy had about 40 dogs with him all the time. And what drove him shit bonkers was his dogs running around in this thing at night, barking like crazy. You couldn't get a wink of sleep in there. He would have much rather preferred to be at Sanssouci in Potsdam, where his dogs could be out running around all night, chasing rabbits and foxes and this, that, but keeping him here in the palace made no sense. That's all I wanted to say.
Great. But one other thing that I would like to hear is the attentat on Hitler over there in the Alte Zeughaus.
Rudolf von Gersdorf.
What was his function in the?
He was if I remember correctly, he was an attaché to OKH, OKW people, Bendler Block. It was right after Stalingrad, if I remember correctly. He unilaterally decided that he was going to take out Adolf Hitler. Okay, without talking to anybody else, unilaterally. What's interesting about this guy is that he, directly after Stalingrad, was supposed to meet Hitler right here out in front of this Alte Zeughaus, and then basically accompany him on a walk through a display of captured Soviet infantry weapons. And apparently Hitler showed up with an entire entourage. I think Dönitz was there, Himmler was there, Goering was there. And Hitler walked inside and looked at it and goes, oh man, I already know all about this shit. I don't need to see this again. Spun on his heels, walked out. Gersdorff had already showed up about 45 minutes before the exhibition and packed his uniform rock with all kinds of plastic explosives. And his grand plan was that as he was escorting Hitler through this exhibition of Soviet infantry weapons, at some point he was going to turn and just give Hitler a big old hug, and boom! And the world would be just a little bit better for one more second, or a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Shit, maybe 5 or 10. But anyway, all of a sudden, as soon as Hitler walked out, he didn't actually get back in the big black armored car. He actually walked over to the Neue Wache and did a Sieg Heil, and then from there got picked up and then went back to the Kanzlei. But apparently when Gersdorff realized that that was going to happen, he was able to squirrel back out, get into a bathroom, and like basically pull all the fuses. Hold on, it only gets more interesting. Yeah. And pull all the fuses out and went undetected and lived until about 1983 in Dusseldorf.
Bro. Yeah, the man who didn't kill Hitler. That's almost a book.
Our man in Berlin. Our man in Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, I might have been embellishing a little bit, but I think that's pretty much the main story.
Yeah.
Rudolf von Gersdorff. Hey, you guys, I'm not sure if this is totally true, but you can see this painted, what looks like red marble.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that this is 100% historically actual, because this was built between 1825 and 1830, and this was immediately after the Napoleonic Wars, and Prussia did not have money. But 25 years later, when the Prussians got a hold of the Ruhrpott, the Ruhrgebiet, and then got coal, it is then with this coal that Prussia gained that they were then able to basically fuel the Prussian-German industrial revolution. And this is where all this made in Germany stuff starts coming from, because then they had it, okay, and they can start producing all this stuff. But all of this stuff is apparently it looks like marble. In California during the 70s and 80s, we referred to this as faux finishing. Okay, it looks like red marble from far away, but if you get up close to it, it's just like someone has gotten rags and slapped rags.
Pieces are coming off already. Pieces are coming off already. Yeah, I was confused because I thought it was red marble, and I got one kid that said, "Is that the marble from the Neue Reichskanzlei?" And I said, no, it's somewhere else.
Wait, you guys, come over here. Come over here.
Here's another crack, Jason.
Here? You can see it right there.
Yeah, but also here. It is the crack from our first first podcast.
You guys, there it is.
We are pointing at the bowl in front of the Altes Museum that the Soviets wanted to loot, as you said.
Hey, something that I always get asked, who are these two personalities?
Oh God.
Hunting the lion?
No idea.
That must be Diana? Because that's a woman, right? This is
a guy. But I've looked it up and it's not that. That's some homework for you, dear listener. There's two statues escorting the steps that go towards the Altes Museum. One lady, hardly dressed, with a spear, and on a horse, and the horse is attacked by a lion.
Maybe we get a cool band photo with this battle-damaged column, the dome, and the TV tower. And
the band picture, already there. Now you are going to talk about the crypt. Welcome to the crypt.
All right, what are we doing now?
The crypt.
Yeah, but we can't go in because it's still closed.
No, but you had a story about it. Or you can also only tell it when you're in it.
Okay, so the only thing I really wanted to say about the crypt is that it's not accessible right now. I think in a year is when they're going to be done with the renovation, so it'll be 2026, maybe early 2027. The thing that's interesting about the Berliner Dom built between 1894 and 1906.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought 1906 was the first Gottesdienst.
Okay,
was
then
the first
1905.
Mass that was said in there. I think it was 1894 to 1905 is when this thing was built. It replaced the old church that was here, which was also Karl Friedrich Schinkel.
Yep.
Okay. You guys were standing at the steps of das Alte Museum von Karl Friedrich Schinkel. We can see the two church towers over there. That is the Friedrichswerdersche Kirche von Karl Friedrich Schinkel. The Foo lanterns over here again von Karl Friedrich Schinkel. Anyway, so the Berliner Dom replaced the old church from Karl Friedrich Schinkel. Yes, it is a place of worship, but what it essentially is a church built on top of a big, huge crypt. And in that crypt are primarily all of the Hohenzollerns, with a couple of famous exceptions. Frederick II, Frederick the Great, he is not in there. He's buried at Sanssouci in Potsdam, in the garden of his villa, with a bunch of his damn dogs. And his dad, the Soldier King, Friedrich Wilhelm I, who I guess those guys didn't really get along all that well.
They all didn't get along well.
Okay.
also Friedrich Wilhelm with his father.
Right. Well, he didn't. His dad was way too decadent.
Yeah.
And he spoke French all the time too, like his grandson. So Frederick III, the later Frederick I. I know we're going to get tummy aches and nosebleeds trying to figure out Prussian royal lineage. But anyway, so Wilhelm II is not there. He's still in Doorn in Holland. Okay.
Yeah.
Buried in his uniform, still waiting for that hot phone call from Berlin. You guys need me? I'm going to get on back. Okay. But lots of the Hohenzollern sons and daughters are in here. I think Friedrich Wilhelm II is in here. I think Frederick III is in here. I think Charlotte and all of they're all buried in here underneath.
Whoa.
Okay. And it's very Protestant. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Vienna and visited the Imperial Royal Australian Crypt. I mean, it's like something in France or Spain you would see. It's like the super Catholic, hyper ornate thing. This is super Protestant.
Yeah.
Minimal.
It's a difference between Hollywood and Ingmar Bergman.
Yeah.
Something like that.
All right, I'm done talking. What do you guys want to say?
Yeah. We are just on the highest point of the steps of the Altes Museum, and with a nice overview of the garden. And this is, I'm dull, but you get some dull facts now. Karl Friedrich Schinkel was also living in the same time.
Keine Winkel ohne Schinkel.
Was living in the same time as Peter Lanné, and Peter Lanné is one of the other bigger names in Berlin. Also an architect, but more an architect of gardens and parks. So what you see here, this layout, is his layout. And when they designed the parks, it almost looked like an abstract painting, because that's what you're looking at. You've got a bowl in the front, one horizontal, then a small pathway, another horizontal, then like a fork which you use to tune an instrument with a fountain in the middle. But there used to be a statue, wasn't there? There used to be a statue over
there. Who was it? Friedrich III, I think, or Friedrich Wilhelm IV. Or the guy who's responsible for the Neue Staatsgalerie und das Neue Museum. Was it him?
Okay, yeah. So one more thing about this, two more things to round this off. We've been talking a lot about royalty, but Karl Friedrich Schinkel was one of the exponents of a new movement which was there for the citizens, because they became more and more important in Berlin itself. And this Altes Museum, where we're looking at, we might have this big columns which remind of Greek times. But if you watch the inside, and there's now glass dividing it from the entrance. But in the old days, you could just walk in, and you had to go on the steps. And when you were on the steps, you were like on a stage. And as a citizen, you was on the stage, not exactly a stage, but on a point where you could see the outside world as a stage. So you were the main actor, and you were the defining actor of what you saw outside. And this aspect of his architecture made this a thing to support this movement of civilians who wanted to have their rights, etc. And then with this thing in 1827 or 1829, built this one.
I think it was built between 1825 and 1830. Carl Friedrich Schenkel.
So there we are in 1830, and now from a little bit after that time, this whole square with the crown itself as well comes into the picture of history, because in Germany they start to think of a united Germany.
Right.
So you had Prussia, and you had the German Bond, and they wanted to get those things together. So Saxony, Prussia, Baden-Württemberg, Bavaria, and they came here, those politicians, to Friedrich Wilhelm IV. You will be the emperor of this new German, but you will be appointed by us. And Friedrich Wilhelm IV said, I'd rather be appointed by God. So that was the end of the revolution. And all these people here, they were waiting for the decision. The people were hungry, there were no kartoffeln, there was no free speech, the press were, the mouth was shut, they had no right to gather themselves. So they were waiting for this new measurements. And the palace was surrounded by the military, and out of a mistake, someone fired. Bang! And that led to a giant uproar, and there were barricades all over the town. And that is what's called the March Revolution. So they had a revolution, they had a king that didn't want to become an emperor, and they had a parliament for which they had to wait another 30 years. Okay, Germany becomes the empire, and then, not lucky for history, you've got Wilhelm II. And he is again on this train of I am sent by God, I've got this job from God, and Job thinks that I have to go abroad because
gonna be a God job.
They all have colonies, and I don't have colonies. I want to have colonies as well. I want to have a big power. So to become a big power, you have to win a war. And here he proclaimed war, and he said, we're all going to fight against France. And these people, they throw their heads in the air, and they all will march to France. And we know how that ended.
What year was that?
1914.
Oh yeah, we know how that one ended.
And it ended with a big strike over here. Again, people suffering because everything had to be produced for the war. And they came again here after the end of the war, because there was the leader of the communists who came on a truck, and on the back of that truck he proclaimed the Soviet state of Germany. And according to legend, he went.
Bandit of Christ.
He went up to one of the balconies and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the Soviet state of Germany," because Lenin in the Soviet Union was waiting. "Hey Karl, what's up, man? Can you hurry up a little bit with the revolution?" But he lost it. Because the SPD, they got held by all those soldiers who came back from World War I, and they were all against the communists, and those are the communists, and let's kill them. And that's what they did. They killed everyone. So here was where that uproar started, the Spartacus uproar. And that
was Christmas time, 1918, 1919. There was this big, huge street fight that took place here.
Yeah, but the whole thing was the 9 November is in the constellation of Germany. Everything happens on 9 November.
This big fight was more around Christmas Eve.
Could be. Everywhere.
Yeah, there was a huge street battle that took place here.
Yeah. Because they occupied the palace. They were in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's Portal number 4?
Or 5, yeah.
And is this not where, is it Liebknecht?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, okay, all right, sorry.
Yeah. So it's now against that, but that's outside this square. And going on with this history, so we've got from Schinkel's introduction of the civil rights and the civilians being, the bourgeois being so important for Berlin, we go to a revolution, we go to an emperor, we go to the 1930s, when everybody was fighting each other. And they used this big space for their rallies. So the communists and the socialists, they were all wild rallies. Everybody was waving the flags and singing their songs, but the Nazis didn't want any of those things because they were organized. So you've got those banners at the right side, you had these banners at the left side, and Hitler had this
right,
and
Rinus,
over there.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't they completely re-landscape the Platz here? And that they completely tore out the grass, and if I'm not mistaken, they tore out the fountain, and they completely paved everything in concrete, and they basically turned it into a big, huge parade ground.
That's what Speer did with every
okay.
with every square in Berlin. Also the Gendarmenmarkt, everything had to go away.
Wow.
So that's this. It looks all so peaceful over here. And if you come to Berlin on a sunny day, everybody is here. People are playing the awful music very loud, and or street artists also that you say, go home, go to another city, leave us alone. But that is what the tourists like apparently. People selling pretzels and ice cream and coffee, and people offering tours, all happening here. All very neat in a city that apparently never saw a war, but that's not true, because the last revolution was also around here. The palace was already with dynamite disappeared, and the East Germans built their Palast der Republik, a big, very great looking James Bondish kind of building, and that's where 500,000 people gathered on the 5th of November. Not knowing that the 9th of November would bring the fall of the wall.
Rinus, can I tell you what I thought Palace of the Republic looked like?
No?
I think I said this the last time around. To me, it looked like something from the surface of the Death Star from the first Star Wars movie from 1977. It was this big, huge brown, gray, glass and metal building. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it actually constructed to be able to withstand nuclear blasts? Okay, guys, what I need to do real quick, I need to run over here to this pissoir.
Oh,
you don't need to
bring it with you, Jason. We'll see.
What do you
I'll see how far it can go.
Really? Should I do like flushing
just
sounds?
keep talking.
Okay, all right.
Say
Here
whatever you want.
Are you guys going to be here, or were you going to be?
We'll be following you.
Yeah. Hey guys, I'm Jason Paul Honea. I am Boy True, aka the Shitty Listener, and you've been here with Rinus Van Alebeek, Anthony Hopkins, de protege, boom, Adrian Shephard. We are standing here in front of the glorious battle-damaged columns of das Alte Museum here in Berlin, between this Diana figure on horseback and whoever this male figure is here at the Lustgarten. And you've been listening to Radio on Berlin. Thank you for listening in.
Bye-bye.
Cut. You didn't record me over there in the bathroom, did you? Whoa.
You have been listening to Radio on Berlin. Yeah!